It. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Dimos Georgokitsos. You might know me from the Airlock Academy or from previous webinars, and with me, the other voice you heard is Mark Bütikover. He is the head of innovations of the Airlock team of the Airlock Secure Access Hub, and as I call him, the father of the IAM. And since we're presenting the new release of the Airlock IAM 7.5, which released about 2 weeks ago, it's a good thing that he's here and he will be answering your questions. There's a question tool which you can use to put in your questions, and then we can go through them and answer them accordingly. Of course, you can send them private to us so no one else can see it if there's something you wouldn't want to share with everyone. I'll turn off my camera now so you can focus on the slides and the presentation. As I said, we're going to present you the new features and some more things about the Airlock IAM 7.5, and we're going to mainly focus on the features within the Loginapp REST API and UI and Airlock 2FA. Of course, there will be some other features which we would like to mention too, but the main focus will be on the first two parts, and at the end I will give you some information about the documentation, what you can do, where you can find the trainings, and so on and so on. As you might know, we are preparing a big move from the classical JSP-based Loginapp to the Loginapp REST API. We started this a few releases ago, and the goal is to move on to completely to the Loginapp REST API with the version 8.0. So IAM 8 will be completely with only including the Loginapp REST API and not the classic JSP-Loginapp anymore. About the timing, I'm going to show you a slide later, but this is the reason why many features which we included now are based or are focused on this change on moving features from the classical Loginapp to the Loginapp REST API features as the user representation. The application portal is now included. We have already with the 7.5 additions in the authentication like matrix cards, SSO tickets, last login timestamps. If you're using OAuth or OpenID Connect, you can now create the client with a flow. So you can create flows using the OAuth client and the relaying party if you're using OpenID Connect. We improved the UI SDK. This is the SDK where you can easily make changes to the UI. It's running completely independent from an IAM installation, so you can give that to your UX designer. This person then can set up the UI and send you a zip file at the end, and you can import it into the IAM installation, and the IAM then will look and feel like your corporate identity needs it to. Then we also added some more self-service like the Cronto management, the MTON management, so you can manage your mobile numbers. There is an unlock feature now, and we improved the password reset. As I said, we added some new flows there, and there's also a dynamic step activation, and there's a new config structure which I will show you during the first presentation or during the first example, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So you see, we have a lot of features. You can, that's not all of them, of course. You can see the new features in the documentation, docs.airlock.com. There is the release notes, and there you can find everything which we added with this version. And let's focus on two things we wanted to point it out. The one is the user representation. Sometimes it's very helpful if a help desk can see what a customer would see. So you can actually represent a customer in an application, which means the representer will take over the identity and see the application as this person sees it, and then know how to point the customer into a direction where the customer wants to move to. This doesn't need any changes on your application or on the application in the background. The application will see the ID of the represented person and then, of course, show the application as it would show it to the according customer. No adjustment is necessary there, but it's possible to restrict features or functions if they are sensitive. So you don't have to change your application, but you can change your application if you don't want the representative to see everything the customer will see. There might be some functions like I don't know, execute a transaction or something which you don't want the representative to be able to do. We already had this in the classical Loginapp JSP-Loginapp, but we included this now with the flows. The same thing goes for the other thing which we wanted to point out. There's now the application portal available within the flows. It's not a replacement, it's actually a complete new edition. We made it more flexible. There are conditions and groups. The design is better adaptable. Of course, you can use the SDK for this one too. The whole thing can be set up to be independent of target applications. So the applications which will show up won't be according to the target application a user can access. And of course, the whole thing is responsive. It's can be used, as you can see on the right side, on a mobile phone, or there's a version which you can use on the desktop. Let me show you how this will look like. Before we start, let me show you the changes within the configuration. This happens when you have to re-log in again. So as a user, I will have to provide my username and password. It looks like a normal login. You see there is a selection because I can have multiple tokens. I will see the request to approve the login on my app. I took out my mobile phone, click on approve, and now I'm logged in. This is the new portal which we talked about. If I make the window a little bit smaller, you will see it adapts according to the window. Therefore, you can also use it in a mobile version where the screen is much, much smaller than in my case, where it's quite big. What we did is we changed the configuration structure. So possibly very important for the people which are configuring the Airlock IAM, we moved all the flows to the top, so you don't have to click through everything to go down to the flows. You can reach them immediately, so I can go here into the authentication flow, into the demo application, and check out my flow, which I just run through. You see the password check is here, the selection step. There would be a mandatory password change if I needed one. I could do a migration if I wanted to, and I could ask for secret questions, but I probably have them already done with my user. This is why those last 3 steps are missing. And yeah, and what we did also is we moved apart the configuration for the flow. So if I go to Loginapp, you see all the flows are up here. There's the rest settings down here. And everything which has to do with the JSP-Loginapp, with the classical JSP-Loginapp, is down here. So the configurations are strictly separated within the configuration, so you are sure that you are working within the flows, or you're sure that you're working within the Loginapp. This will help you work with the configuration much better than in the older versions. You will have a better overview, and you can then know where you are. Sometimes in the old configuration it was confusing. At least for me, it was like this. Sometimes I didn't know, do I change that now in the JSP-Loginapp, or am I already in the flow? So this will be nice to work with. I already worked with it the last 2 weeks. It was really, really, a really big improvement. For the persons of you who didn't migrate already, or still have a classical JSP-Loginapp, there is still some time to move on. If you have questions about the migration, you can go to airlock.com. /en for the English version. And then Loginapp Migration, there you'll find all the information. There's even a part in the documentation which will support your migration. So if you go to docs.airlock.com, open up the 7.5 documentation, you can see here within the flows, it's a classical.
You have to go to the Loginapp chapter.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, of course, it's chapter 17. You can see in the
17.5,
because in the flows it explains only the flows. Of course, within the Loginapp module, you can see what is the difference between the JSP-Loginapp and the REST UI, and there is a chapter 17.5 about the migration, where you can see why to migrate, when to migrate, and so on and so on. For the technicians on the within you, it's very important that you see that there is a feature reference where you can click on. Let's say you are interested in the token self-service features. You go here and you can see for every feature which is there, it will say which version it was changed into the flow engine. So there is 7.3, 7.4. You see there are some which are still planned. And therefore you will know that if it's already possible that you can migrate now, or you have to wait until the next version until you can migrate. And what's also very important for you is at the end, there is the discontinued features chapter, where we say which features are not available anymore within the new flow engine, which doesn't mean that it isn't possible to do what this feature did in the new engine. It just means this specific feature doesn't exist anymore. So have a look on the left side, see what we write down on the right side. Sometimes it says how you can solve it within the REST version of the Loginapp with the flow engine. And if you see that something wouldn't be supported anymore, please contact us as soon as possible if you need this to be included in a future version, so you are able to migrate to the flow-based engine. Why should you switch? It's possible to have much bigger flexibility. You will have multiple flows. Let's say you can have multiple target applications, every target application with its own flow. If you have a flow defined for a target application, you can have the same flow for a web application and the app. It might be even your own app which you created. There's a lot of flexibility where you can have complex processes within those flows. You saw there is a selection possibility where you can select depending on what token you want to use. You can even include multiple versions or different types of tokens. So you can have a user select if this person wants to log in with the MTAN, or if he wants to log in with the Airlock 2FA. There is even a functionality where you can do go-tos. You can jump. Let's say you selected MTAN and you find out you have no connection with your mobile phone, then you can jump to the Airlock 2FA if you included this in your flow, and then the user can continue with the offline login from the Airlock 2FA. Of course, the REST API is advanced technology with stable APIs, so you can build up your application. If you don't want to use a browser, if you want to use your own application, which you can build up your application and connect it to this API. The UX is attractive. There is a simple adaptation of the corporate design using the SDK, and it's even possible to extend the flows by creating your own steps, which gives you even more flexibility. About the time schedule, we're now towards the end of the 2021. Airlock IAM 7.5 has been released. There will be one more version which will include the JSP-Loginapp. It will be the 7.6, which will come out in the beginning of 2022. And this version will be supported for 21 months. So if it comes out in March, the support will end about 2023 December, more or less. Of course, I cannot vow for that. This depends on when the release will be. Then after half a year, there will be the release of the Airlock IAM 8.0, and this one will be without the JSP-Loginapp. So if you want to migrate, you see, you still have about 2 years, but please plan it and do it as soon as possible. If you have a new project, don't start with the classical JSP-Loginapp. Do it directly with the flows. If you have some changes within your application, it might be nice and a good moment to move on to the flows. Okay, so move on to the Airlock 2FA. We have some additions there. We added an offline QR code login. So instead of typing off a passcode, you will see a QR code which you can scan with your application, and then a code will be presented to you which you can type into the screen, and then you're logged in without having any connection with your mobile phone. For instance, if you're in an airplane or whatever, you can still log in with the Airlock 2FA. We included self-management for the hardware token, where you can show yourself as a customer your hardware token and can manage the according token. For the administrators, there is now possible to create a letter order. So you can create an activation letter for a user, which will be set into an order. And then at the end, you can run a batch job, which will create all the activation letters in one run. This has the good, nice side effect that you can also do an import, a mass import of users, and define every new user which is imported should get an activation letter automatically. As soon as you've run through the import, you can run the batch job. All the activation letters will then be generated automatically. You don't have to do it for every activation letter yourself. And there's also a nice add-on for users like me who like to delete too many tokens. So if you are about to delete your last 2FA device, the application will stop you from deleting it, so you're still able to log in, even if you deleted as many Airlock 2FA devices as you can, because the last one will be prevented. So will be prevented from being deleted, and therefore we protect the customers from themselves at this point. We also have another small addition. Maybe you saw it before when I logged in. It's a login ID which is displayed to the user. So as soon as you log in, you will see the login ID on the screen. You can then compare it within your mobile device, within the application, and verify that it is the same. And therefore, you can also see, of course, if someone tries to do login attempts in your behalf and your application just shows login IDs which you don't know, you can cancel them, and therefore the attacker wouldn't be able to log in. I turned now my mobile phone to offline mode, so I put it to airplane mode. I will log in again as before, providing my username password. I land on this page. You see the login ID here. I would see it in my application when if I would be online. I'm not online anymore, of course. Therefore, I switch to offline mode, and this is the new thing I was talking about. I bring up my Airlock 2FA device, scan the QR code, approve the login, and then type in the code which has been provided to me, log in, although my mobile device is offline. The other thing I was talking about is the activation letters. So if an administrator would like to create an activation letter for my user, it would be possible to create it in here. Here you see my user has already ordered an activation letter. I could delete this, of course, and then order a new activation letter, which then would be created as soon as the batch job would run through and all the open activation letters would be printed, or created at least. Okay, those are the main features within the Airlock 2FA. Let's have a look at some other features. We created notifications, which means that emails can be sent to customers in case of different or diverse events. For instance, an account has been locked, the password has changed, Airlock 2FA device has been added, or Airlock 2FA device has been deleted. Those messages will be sent to the event bus. The event bus will then create an email, and the customer will be notified that this event has happened. The nice thing about this event bus is that you can add your own subscribers down here. So you can create an SMS subscriber to the event bus, so an SMS will be sent out, or a third-party system which has some kind of notifications, or a push notification. So there are many ways you can do that. I will show this with my user here. So if I lock this user down, there should be a mail coming in a few seconds. It always takes a moment. Give me here. Yeah, you see the account has been locked. I just used the template we have there. The template, of course, is in the finished mail, which you can use one-to-one, but it shows you that there are variables which you can use. So a user will see what time this happened, who did it, and things like this. You can show the user ID, of course, the log reason can be shown, and so on and so on. So you will create your own template, and then the mail would look accordingly and not like this. Another thing we added to the Airlock IAM is the health checks. So there are now two types of checks. There's the liveness checks to see if the IAM container is live. So if IAM is up and running, and there's the other check which is also possible. It's the check if the IAM container is ready to take requests. So will clients be able to log in? So is the machine running, and will clients be able to log in? Those are two different questions actually, and therefore and this is actually according to the micro profile standard. Therefore, it's easy to integrate it in your Kubernetes environment, and you will see within your tools and the other Kubernetes tools that your IAM is up and running, or it's down, or if it's reachable for clients, or if it's not reachable for clients. Okay, let's have a look. 25 minutes, very good. Let's move on to the last few slides. You already saw the new documentation, or at least you saw the 7.5 documentation. What we did is we did a better top-level structure. And if you know what you're looking for, opposite to me before, but if you know what you're looking for, it's easier to find the information. There is a part for where we explain the concept. You can see it up here. It's like the authentication services. If you want to have a look at flows, how they work, you can see this here, SAML 2.0, OAuth, and so on and so on. And there are the technical issues where down here we created a help for every module. Let me go back to the living object. So up here are the concepts. Down here you see for every module we have documentation. So if you want to find out how conceptually something works, you go through the help up here. If you want to see if it's how it's configured, you go down here and click into the, let's say, Loginapp, and then you go to the REST API and click on user self-registration to see how it's configured. Of course, those are cross-linked, so if you want to see the conceptual part of the things, you click up here, and then you see the explanation, what's the reasoning behind it, how does it work, and so on and so on. And of course, on this side, again, the links to the technical part down here, where you can see the links to the according configuration in the REST UI, and in this case it's even possible to do it in the JSP-Loginapp, so you can see the link to the JSP-Loginapp. The other thing which you can see right now is that we did a clear separation between the flow-based Loginapp and the JSP-Loginapp. So even in the documentation, you will see that there are two different parts of the documentation, of the technical documentation, where you can find the according information. So you always know where you are, like in the configuration itself, where we separated those settings. So you know where you're moving around. Yeah. Now, a few last things. The trainings, if you want to see how those things work for yourself, you can find them on airlock.com/academy. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a REST API and UI training where it's 1 day for people who are already certified, where they can have a look at the UI. We created a specific flow with self-registration, password reset, token registration, multiple authentication tokens. You will be able to have MTON and Airlock 2FA at the same time, and then you can select if you want to use the one or the other. You will see how GoTo works and things like this. Everything everything is built in this specific workflow, which you can have a look at this 1 day training we provide. You can find this on airlock.com/academy. And as always, there is the slides and the recorded webinar, which you can find on the tech zone. The slides will be uploaded, I think, in the afternoon. The recorded webinar always takes 1 or 2 days until it's converted and uploaded, so it's reachable. But you should be able to find the recorded webinar about Friday, I would say. Maybe Thursday, possibly on Friday. Okay, that was it. That was everything I wanted to show. Let me have a look if I missed something. If there are open questions, use the question tool. I see that there are no questions yet. Yeah, don't hesitate if there's something. Use the question tool. Otherwise, I wish you a nice day.